What is going on, guys? Nathan here with a South Park Stick of Truth gameplay commentary. Here actually reviewing the game, and I felt like making this review because this game is kind of interesting in that I think half of the people who buy it will be very satisfied with these $60 they spent, because that is what it costs right now, is $60, and the other half will be very disappointed. And if you are considering buying this game, you should definitely be informed as to what it contains. And also consider how much of a fan you are of South Park. And that's the game's just kind of interesting like that. I think it's more of like a love it or hate it type of game. And this review will kind of play up on both sides. Like I said, I don't have like a ton of experience in the game, haven't even beat the game, but I've played enough to really get a feel for what it's like, and I would like to try to protect some of you from a bad purchase. Now, first of all, we'll just jump right into it. This game is pretty great if you are a fan of the South Park series. It is freaking awesome. You will just jizz at the amount of nostalgia that is featured in this game, because they feature like random things from shows, like the robot costume that Cartman had. If you look in Cartman's closet, there's just a bunch of stuff from shows that introduces a kind of nostalgia factor, and oh, I remember that. Also, the comedy is pretty good. The jokes are pretty funny, very South Park style, very offensive. So if you are, well, yeah, that's just how South Park is. I don't think that really needs to be described in more detail. It's basically the South Park show, except that you are controlling the character, which, if you are a fan of South Park, that is amazing. I'm not a super fan of South Park, and it's not like I didn't not like it, if that makes sense. I was just kind of one of those people who watched it every once in a while for some entertainment, and I don't have a particular nostalgia around it, but, you know, it's just kind of a show to watch, and it was funny at times. But yeah, the comedy is great. A lot of the dialogue is pretty funny, and like I said, seeing those artifacts from past episodes is actually really cool. So overall, it's a pretty great game. Now, while the comedy is pretty great, it does tend to get stale once you've completed the game, especially. There isn't really much replay value to this game, because hearing the same jokes just isn't that funny. And I experienced this a lot because I had watched a decent amount of Jesse Cox playing this game before I actually played it myself, and I found that the beginning part wasn't as funny because I've already heard what the characters are going to say. So if you've watched a lot of videos of this game and heard a lot of the jokes, it's not really worth buying, because you won't get that same, you know, comedic value out of the game. So just be kind of aware of how much you've already seen about this game. On the bright side, though, the game is pretty long. What I've heard is about 10-ish hours. There's just a lot of stuff to do, a lot of places to explore, and a lot of loot to get, especially if you're one of those people who likes to collect everything. Also, side note, pretty much every player tends to accumulate junk in this game. It's stuff that's only worth selling, but some of the descriptions on that stuff is pretty amusing. So once or twice, I would suggest going through your junk inventory and just reading the descriptions that the dev wrote in for what you've collected. It turns out that 75% of the stuff you'll collect is dildos. That's just kind of how it works out, and yeah, I guess you just find a lot of dildos in the world. Anyway, overall, this game has pretty good gameplay, I would say. The combat is pretty strategic, which typically does come with a turn-based RPG, which I believe is the technical classification of this game. And there is a sort of puzzle factor to the game, where there are a lot of situations, especially, you know, raiding like a boss castle or something, where you can actually complete certain puzzles in the world to avoid combat. So, for example, I might be able to fire an arrow at an object in the world and set a guy on fire, which means that I won't have to fight him. It just adds a kind of Legend of Zelda type of feel, in that you can outsmart the game by completing these puzzles, and make it a lot easier for yourself to traverse through the worlds. Now, the biggest thing about this game is its price point, at least to me. I think this game would probably entertain like a $60 value if you are a fan of the series and you are playing it for the first time, but otherwise, it's really not worth $60. Like I said, I've already seen, 2 to 3 hours of gameplay, spoiling a lot of the jokes, and adding a little bit of a boredom factor, to be quite honest. In my opinion, I think this game should be about $10 because it really just, like, $60 is really high price, especially on PC. On console, a lot more games are $60, but on Steam, there are sales all the time, and I'm sure this game will go on sale to the point where it's like $10 eventually, but I think with a permanent $10 price point on this game, the developers would end up making more money in the long run. For example, I know a few friends that would probably end up buying this game if it was a lot cheaper than $60, just because people would definitely fork over $10 to basically be a character in a South Park episode. So, I don't know, they know more than me on what it takes to develop a game financially, but that's maybe something I would consider if I was the developer. So, anyway, that's pretty much the points I had for this game. I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the fact that a lot of you might be disappointed with this game if you spend $60 on it, while, you know, the other half of you might be very excited and very happy with your purchase. So, just something to keep in mind. Make sure you do your research on your game, or on the game, and really evaluate yourself as to whether you are a hardcore South Park fan and will enjoy this to its fullest extent. So anyway, I think that is pretty much all I have for you guys today, and as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.